In 2010, scientists discovered an entire human species from a single finger bone, a species that lived for 200,000 years across all of Asia. A species we never knew existed, and their genes are still inside you. They're called the Denisovans, ghost humans, the most mysterious relatives we've ever discovered. Known from less than a dozen bone fragments, yet their DNA tells a story of survival, adaptation, and ultimately, disappearance. This is the rise and fall of humanity's lost cousins. Welcome to Beyond Origin. 300,000 years ago, Earth wasn't ruled by one human species. It was ruled by many. Neanderthals dominated Europe and the Middle East. Homo erectus still survived in parts of Asia. Homo floresiensis, the hobbits, lived on Indonesian islands. In Africa, Homo sapiens, our ancestors, were just beginning their journey. And somewhere in the vast expanse of Asia, another group thrived in the shadows. We would never know they existed, except for one lucky accident. In 2008, Russian archaeologists were excavating Denisova Cave in Siberia's Altai Mountains. Among thousands of animal bones, they found something unusual: a tiny finger bone, a child's pinky, barely an inch long. It sat in a lab for 2 years before anyone looked closely at its DNA. When they did, the scientific world stopped. This wasn't a modern human. This wasn't a Neanderthal. This was something else entirely. A whole new branch of the human family tree. One we never knew existed. They called them Denisovans, after the cave where they were found. But that tiny finger bone opened a massive mystery. Who were these people? What did they look like? Where did they live? The problem? We had almost no fossils. Just that finger bone. A few teeth. And later, a jawbone found in Tibet. But we had something better. And that DNA told an incredible story. Denisovans weren't confined to one region. Their genes show up in people across Asia, Southeast Asia, Australia, and Pacific Islands. Some populations today carry up to 5% Denisovan DNA. This meant Denisovans didn't just live in one cave. They dominated an entire continent, from the frozen mountains of Siberia to the humid jungles of Southeast Asia, from sea level to the roof of the world, the Tibetan Plateau, over 10,000 feet high. Denisovans conquered every environment Asia had to offer. For 200,000 years, they thrived where others couldn't survive. In 2019, scientists made a breakthrough. A Buddhist monk had found a jawbone decades earlier, in a cave on the Tibetan Plateau. When researchers finally analyzed it, they discovered it was Denisovan, and it was at least 160,000 years old. This was a game changer. The Tibetan Plateau is one of Earth's harshest environments. Thin air, brutal cold. Most humans can't survive there without modern technology, but Denisovans called it home. Recent excavations at this cave revealed over 2,500 animal bone fragments. Denisovans hunted woolly rhinos, blue sheep, and marmots. They butchered their kills with stone tools. They used bones and teeth to make other tools. They prepared animal hides. They weren't just surviving, they were thriving. And here's where it gets fascinating. The DNA evidence shows Denisovans had special genetic adaptations. A gene called ES1 that helps the body use oxygen more efficiently in low-oxygen environments. Today, Tibetan people carry this exact gene. They inherited it from Denisovans, ancient DNA that helps modern humans live on the roof of the world. So what did they actually look like? With so few fossils, scientists had to get creative. Using DNA analysis, they created a reconstruction. Denisovans were robust, stocky build, similar to Neanderthals. Large jaw with massive molars, wide pelvis, thick brow ridges, broad flat face with a large nose, low forehead, and wide skull. But unlike Neanderthals, they lacked a prominent chin, and their teeth were enormous, larger than any other human species. They were built for endurance, for harsh climates, for survival. But the biggest revelation came from studying modern human DNA. And what scientists found changed everything we thought about human evolution. Denisovans didn't just live alongside us. They bred with us. Multiple times. At least 3 separate interbreeding events. In 2018, scientists analyzed a bone fragment from Denisova Cave. DNA revealed it belonged to a 13-year-old girl who lived 90,000 years ago. Her mother was a Neanderthal. Her father was a Denisovan. She was a hybrid. Direct proof that different human species weren't just coexisting. They were forming families. This discovery was shocking. It meant human species weren't enemies. They met, communicated, and fell in love. Today, Denisovan genes help Pacific Islanders and Aboriginal Australians survive. They gave Tibetans high-altitude adaptation. They strengthened immune systems across Asia. They helped Inuit populations survive Arctic cold. The Denisovans may be gone, but they're not extinct. They live on, in millions of people alive today. If you're of Asian, Pacific Islander, Aboriginal Australian, or even European descent, you likely carry Denisovan DNA. Not much, maybe 2 to 5%, but it's there. You're part Denisovan. We all are. In many ways, they were better adapted than our ancestors. They had been in Asia for hundreds of thousands of years. They knew the land. They knew how to survive. So why did they disappear? The last confirmed Denisovan fossil dates to between 48,000 and 32,000 years ago, found in that same Tibetan cave, a rib bone marking their final known presence. By this time, Homo sapiens had spread across Asia. We were everywhere, and wherever we went, other human species started to vanish. Neanderthals disappeared around 40,000 years ago, but some evidence suggests Denisovans held on longer, perhaps surviving in isolated pockets until 30,000 years ago. Some studies even suggest they might have lasted until 15,000 years ago in places like New Guinea. What happened at Baishia Cave? After 100,000 years of continuous occupation, the Denisovans simply thrift, or died out. Sometime between 40,000 and 32,000 years ago, the cave fell silent. No signs of violence. No evidence of disaster. They just stopped being there. The most likely explanation? Homo sapiens didn't necessarily wage war on Denisovans. We didn't need to. We simply outcompeted them. We had more sophisticated tools, better communication, larger social networks, more complex culture. We could adapt faster, innovate quicker, and survive in more varied conditions. But there's another possibility. We didn't just replace them. We absorbed them. Every time Denisovans and Homo sapiens met, they interbred. Over thousands of years, the Denisovan gene pool got smaller and smaller, mixing more and more with ours. Eventually, there were no pure Denisovans left. Just humans carrying pieces of Denisovan DNA. It's not extinction, in the traditional sense. It's assimilation. The Denisovans force us to rethink human evolution. We're taught that humans evolved in a straight line. Ape to early human to us. Simple, clean. But the truth is messy. 300,000 years ago, 9 different human species walked Earth. We weren't alone. We were never alone. And we didn't evolve in isolation. We met, traded, fought, loved, and had children together. Human history isn't a tree with separate branches. It's a tangled web of interconnected stories. The mystery of the Denisovans isn't solved. It's barely begun. We've only found fossils from a handful of sites. Denisova Cave in Siberia, Baishia Cave in Tibet, a jawbone in Laos, a tooth in Taiwan, a few more scattered across Asia. That's it. Less than 15 fossil fragments. For a species that dominated an entire continent for 200,000 years, somewhere out there, in caves and dig sites we haven't found yet, are more Denisovan remains, more clues to who they were, how they lived, and why they disappeared. Every new discovery changes our understanding. Every fossil tells a story we didn't know. The Denisovans are teaching us that human history is far stranger, far more complex, and far more interconnected than we ever imagined. from a single finger bone to a genetic legacy carried by millions. From complete mystery to one of the most important discoveries in human evolution, the Denisovans rose from obscurity and vanished into our genes. They adapted, survived, and thrived in the harshest places on Earth. And then, like ghosts, they disappeared, leaving only whispers in our DNA. The Denisovans aren't ancient history. They're living history, carried in the DNA of people around the world. A reminder that we're all hybrids, all connected, all carrying pieces of lost species inside us. What other human species are waiting to be discovered? What other stories are hidden in our genes? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to explore more about our ancient human relatives, check out the videos linked below. Thanks for watching. Stay curious about where we came from.